in success. Whether or not you are poor or rich, you can embody any of those 3 building blocks. You can be strong and steadfast as a man without shouting. Did you know? I did not know that. For me, I thought growing up, because I used to see men shouting at women, I used to think the number one symbol of strength is as a man, you have got to bark like a lion. But that's not true. I've seen very soft-spoken men who articulate their points, and they are understood at the end of the day, and it does not change anything about them. It does not change their masculinity. So we need to change our organizing. And I would like to encourage the men in this room to change your organizing. Do not only befriend people who are richer than you. All those who are, who are poorer than you, so that you can feel like you're better than them. Organize with people whose shared values, you can meet and have shared values. Someone will ask me, what if for us our shared value is meeting at Kush and Leboti and I don't know, maybe that could be one of your values. But the point I'm trying to make is that let's move away from looking at men as people who provide, only provide. We need to move away from looking at men as putting this unnecessary pressure on them as men who need to be sexually virile. That even you, a man who enjoys monogamy, because you see your friends have 3 girlfriends, you tell yourself, can we have organizing around shared values? The second thing is that once we have organizing around shared values, is that as men, if we do that, it will be very crucial to decenter women. Let me spend a bit of time by talking about why men need to decenter women from their discourse. A man, if you interact with someone, he'll tell you he's making money so that he can spoil his woman, right? And that's not a bad thing. But the reason why as men we need to decenter women from our discourse is because ultimately we need to do things not for women, but for us as men. If in our spaces we are talking about cleanliness as men, can the discussion not be that men need to be clean for women, but rather that men need to be clean for themselves? Are we understanding the difference between those 2 points? Because for so many men do things for women. You understand? Oh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing SRHR? We're doing it for women. No. Can we do SRHR for men? Because it is important that first and foremost, your health as a man is very good before you even interact with the woman next to you. Do we understand that point? Because for so many men, it's always about the baby bidiwa. The baby bidiwa. Now let me smell nice because it's for a woman. And there is nothing wrong with attracting. Attracting people is, even in the bird kingdom, birds put on all these very shiny colors in order to attract mates that they're going to mate with. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in our spaces when we organize, can we empower men to say, as you take care of your body, for instance, you're taking care of it. What's the name of my Nigerian friend, the one who prayed for us? Destiny. The other one, I want the hard one. Does he have the hard one like Osita, like... okay, let's go with Destiny. Yes, okay. So that when Destiny makes the decision of calling out another man or catcalling a woman, they are not doing it because, oh, they did that to a woman. He's doing that because it's inherently wrong for men to catcall women. Do we understand that simple distinction? after we understand, and by the through organizing, I would encourage men to seek out other men and try to organize around those ideals and values. So many men will teach you so many lessons about life because they've moved through the cycles of life and they can provide very good mentorship for you. I would really encourage the men in this room to seek out older men and genuinely seek connections with them. After we are done organizing, it's also important for us as men to champion things like consent. Ultimately, when we are talking about SRHR, there are certain principles that are important. Things like bodily autonomy. If a girl says no, as a man, do you take it and say, okay, there's plenty of fish in the sea, and try again? Without, again, feeling like you need to do away with the consent. You understand? Because as surely as night follows day, there is always someone for each of us in this place. Not so? Yeah. Exactly. So, as we talk about championing consent, it is important for men to understand that things like jokes, things like attitudes, things like behaviors need to be challenged. Locker room talk around, making very light. Like, for instance, you heard someone has been sexually assaulted, and as a man, you laugh. As a man, you make jokes out of that. I think as men, we need to challenge some of these. We need to challenge some of these attitudes. Secondly, as men, it's also important for us to understand how we can share responsibility. And as we go into marriage and lifelong commitments, it's important for men to understand that these unions are unions for shared responsibility. That if, for instance, you're having a discussion on family planning, it is not enough for you to relegate that discussion to your girlfriend. For so many men, what they do is that, and forgive me for speaking very bluntly, but this is an SRHR class, so you'll forgive me. After every sexual encounter, you'll see a man saying, ndozankuwe za emergency, let me give you for the emergency contraceptive. You understand? The women are disputing that. Okay, men, well, I think they're using condoms or something like that, When that happens, the man's role is primarily the role of providing the money for this woman to buy the emergency contraceptive, right? But how about we challenge ourselves as men to say that that you want to buy and bring? How about, maybe that may be more difficult, how about you follow up and you ask this person maybe how they are feeling after they've taken the emergency contraceptive? As a man, I feel like as a man, when you do that, you have moved beyond the realm of being a provider. You have now moved to the realm of being a human being that is genuinely concerned about the health of the person that you have just slept with. The third point is about open and respectful communication. And under here, I would like to challenge the men. These men that you see struggle with communication. Very many men have communication challenges. And it's because they do not know how to talk. Sometimes they feel like every time they raise issues, women will dismiss them, or they will, Can we maybe as men create enabling conditions that ensure that we have open and respectful communication? Because when you have open and respectful communication, your girlfriend will be able to tell you that the hormonal method of family planning she's using is actually harming her more than she cares to admit. And when she tells you that, you've got to be able to understand that, look, wow, you may like, the live way of doing things, but because now your woman is telling you that it's important that you consider her point of view, you can then compromise and maybe get some other method, you understand? But ultimately, there should be room for open and respectful communication. The other point I wish to share about is it's important for men to seek. Oh, there's a point. Yes, please.
What if it's the other way around? What if it's the woman that wants it live and, yes. Yeah, me, I don't want live, and she's like, I can't do that.
And
actually, this is how they say it. I don't eat sweet with a Cavendish. Hey.
And you see, I've heard women saying there is no man that will ever reject life. And you see, that's a problem that we need to deal with. Because these men may genuinely be scared about engaging in live sex with you. And that's why open communication is important, my brother. I didn't get your name. And that's why
Marvin.
Marvin, yes. That's why open communication is important. Because as men also, there are men who fear to tell their partners, I don't enjoy this, even when it comes to sex. These days, women have, sex is like a spectrum. It's like a spectrum. So these days, if you're not careful, a woman will do something to you, and then you're thinking, wow, I didn't like it, but how do I even tell her? You understand? How do I even tell her? So that's why it's important for us as men to have open communication, to tell women, look here, I understand you may enjoy eating sweets away from their wrapper, but sometimes when a sweet has insects and you still want to eat it, you leave the wrapper on and you still enjoy the goodness that comes from the sweet. But thank you for those insights, Marvin. The other bit I would like to add is that it's important for men to seek and share accurate information on sexual reproductive health and rights. Again, I started by saying that it was wrong for SRHR to be framed as primarily a women's issue. Now, because of that, men don't even bother to share information or to even seek information on SRHR. I will ask the men in this room, how many of us have ever visited, what is the male equivalent of a gynecologist? Are they called urologists? Do we know the male equivalent? Okay, do we know the masculine equivalent of a gynecologist? I think they are called urologists. You see? You see? You understand? That's where the actual problem is. That even when a man gets a problem, he would rather, and that explains why we have an uptake in consumption of things like energy drinks, things like boosters, because these ones can be consumed in private. And men do not want to go to a doctor and tell them, look, man, my muntu wawansi is not doing things the way I want them to. You understand? So it's important as men to challenge ourselves to genuinely seek and share information on sexual and reproductive health and rights, especially information that is related to men. Okay? So for instance, from the admission in this room, I've learned men do not know. If they had problems with omuntu wawansi, they do not know where to go. And again, that is a problem that we've seen in so many spaces that we've been to. The other point I wish to talk about, yes, please.
But I think on that point, we do the culture way. We respect things like Malondo, something like that. Yes, we respect the culture of treatment. Just nuts, coffee, things like that. Yes. And that makes, I don't know, without, it's not experience, but from what people are saying, it works very well. Even these ladies know. It's serious.
And look, I'm not going to dispute the workability or non-workability of things like those ones that you've described. I also know that men could get conditions that are dire that may not be cured necessarily by those methods. And that's why it is important that men get this fear. We need to get, as out of ourselves this fear of visiting health centers. In 2021, a study was commissioned, and the study was aimed at seeing how masculinities affect men's uptake of sexual reproductive health commodities. I was part of the research team, and we found that in places where you have traditional masculinities, like the one that my brother Marvin is describing, the uptake of SRHR commodities was very low. And therefore, we also found that because of that, SRHR indicators were most likely to be inflated as a result of not seeking genuine health care. And I'll give us an example. In the northern part of the country, because of the war that ravaged that part of the country after the NRA came into power, we have so many broken men in the northern part of the country. Call them broken men, broken masculinities. These men don't even seek health care because they are so broken that they feel like even a hospital cannot help me. Even in traditional spaces where, like in Uganda, men are not seeking health care, and that affects them. So what happens is that a man gets HIV, and when he gets HIV, he remembers that a man is not supposed to go to hospital. And because of that, he will take Panadol. Have you guys heard of a concept called Panadol men? Panadol men are men who have developed resistance to drugs because their disease has advanced to a level where the drugs can no longer work as effectively on them. So for such men, you're no longer put on the first line of treatment for ARVs, you're put on the last line. You understand? So again, masculinities do affect the uptake of SRHR commodities, and it's important for us as men to challenge that and genuinely seek health care, because all these traditional alternatives that you're talking about, my brother, have limitations. Yes, they could give you strength in terms of the strength that you need to play the football match, but how about what happens when the slasher you're using becomes bent? Do you still use Murondo at the end of the day, or will you see a specialist to actually help you rebend your slasher so that the slasher does an amazing job? You understand? Yes, so it's actually very, very important that men, these things have a limit. They actually have a limit. And that's why it's important, again, to understand those limits and to seek for more care once those limits have been exhausted. The last bit I wish to talk about is positive role modeling and mentorship. Oh, yes, my brother.
Thank you so much. My name is Nevo, and I'm a final year student. I also happen to be a sexual reproductive health rights activist and advocate. So, my question, it would kind of take us back to our first point. Okay, it's a little bit of question, an inquiry, and as much a conviction. So, like from where I started the discussion, we realized that the society has constructed us a lot of theories and ideologies that we actually follow when we're approaching this man versus women question. And we realized that, okay, they have been revolving with time. So my own inquiry is like, how best or what has been put in place for us to address these issues of sexual and reproductive health without relying on these theories that have already been implemented. Because I just feel like these are more actually harmful than good. Because if I say that if someone has maybe constructed patriarchy, I'll counter it with matriarchy, masculinity, feminism. So realize that in all these ideologies, they always come to counter others, and even organizations that are actually put in place in the present time, someone say women this, men this. So it creates that whole sort of a distinction and isolation. So how best can we deal with these issues with actually bleaching away those differences, without relying on this difference? And even secondly, this can kind of look like it's contrary to the first question, but if we are actually to address these questions, how best can we address it with realizing the differences that actually exist between men and female? Because this is unequivocal. Men biologically, psychologically, and all other aspects are different. So how best can we intersectionally address these differences by realizing that differences that you're having here?
Okay. Okay, it's partially more like a response to Neville. One, I think it is important for us to appreciate that it's society that grooms men, right? And the best way that you're going to it is society that grooms men, right? And the best way that you're going to reach out to these men largely is particularly through the society that thereby grooms it. If you need to convince a Uganda man to go for probably like to the hospital to check their HIV status, you're not just going to wake up and like speak to them, right? That is why there are partnerships with people like the Kabaka, like through kingdoms and all that. Why particularly that is true is that in as much as you want to isolate these off cultures and things that groom these particular men, they best identify with particularly these norms. The best way you're going to break the system of particular, maybe like FGM in the Sabini women, you're not going to wake up and you've come like probably as the government and all that. You're going to go through these various cultures and society that groom these particular individuals. So I don't think it is more like an individualistic kind of system, but rather a system in which how best then do we reach men through the very societies and patriarchies that have formed them, and how do we break them without particularly harming that very thing that they identify with. Yeah.
Wow. I really agree with what my sister just shared. I also think that in addition to that, in this discussion around gender justice and our pursuit to ensure that we have more favorable SRHR indicators, it's important that we do not look at each other as enemies. And that's why, for me, in the discourse that we're currently having on gender justice, I've told people, and I said this the other day, that gender justice should not be construed to mean anti-masculinity or anti-femininity, but rather gender justice should be about how men can contribute and women can contribute. It's a collective effort. And I really agree with my sister that it's important for us to find men at the points with which they find meaning and belonging. So for instance, if you want behavioral change, you have got to target kingdoms, for instance, because again, with kingdoms, we've seen there's no culture that is static. Cultures evolve. And for many of these kingdoms, when you see like the kingdom of Buganda, for instance, very welcoming kingdom that whose agenda and ideology can actually be tweaked to suit things like gender equality. When people are talking about there are those mpajis of Buganda, Buntubulamu, there is who are the Baganda in the room? Remind me of those different mpajis of Buganda, Buntubulamu. What are the others? Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
My name is Luho Andonias, President in Tumwesigye,
Yes,
and President Main Pro Bono Initiative. Okay, when you are speaking about the 5 pillars on which our Uganda was built, one, it is unity, obumu. The second one is okuma Uganda nebyayo, protecting the properties of Uganda and its boundaries. Secondly, okuma abantu ba Buganda okuba nti balamu era bakola, promoting health in Buganda and also ensuring that Baganda are people living in a healthy life. Then there is okuma nokutaasa Namulondo, protecting our throne and also protecting our king. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. You're a very grounded young man. Eh? You're very, very grounded. So, for instance, and that Makere, I was an honorary member of Baganda and Kovazambogo. I really love that kingdom so much. So, for instance, from what my brother has shared, it's very clear that male engagement is a strategy, for instance, that we can read into that other one you talked about of the health of Baganda and you know, we can fit it within that. And again, it's just about organizations engaging the kingdom and making sure that the kingdom also is engaged. And for me, that's one of the ways that we can actually get men on board. The other bit is about religion. Whether we want it or not, many of the reasons why men continue to do the things that they do is there's some form of religious backing that they have. And that's why it's important to engage with churches. But, you know, not just any church. For the young people in this place, I know that many of you have run away from our traditional churches. You are now fellowshipping at Faneru and Zoe Fellowship and Worship Harvest and Watoto, all those cool churches. Now, for us as civil society, we've mainly targeted Anglican and Catholic churches. And it explains why increasingly we need to start looking to how we can partner with people like Apostle Grace Lubega to see how we can make sure that this message actually reaches the people. Because once Apostle Grace says, men, you accompany your wives to hospital, is there any person at Faneru who will not? Thank you. So it is actually very, very important that we engage, that we understand where the power centers are, and we engage them. And this problem is not just within civil society, it's also government. When government thinks of engaging religious leaders, they'll call the Ntagalis. No, Ntagali is not. Is Ntagali the current guy? Ntagali was the guy who did the SRHR. Yeah, okay. Okay, so Kazimba, yes. So they want to engage the Kazimbas. They do not want to engage people like Apostle Grace that have this very sizable following and who can actually change and impact so many things in that regard. So I was moving to the next point around. Yes, please.
All right. Thank you for that insight. Okay, on my second question, I don't feel it's actually been really addressed to satisfaction. Because my question was, how then best can we realize the protection of these rights? I mean, it's even us understanding that there are differences that exist between men and female. Okay, I will share this. Should I say hypothesis? No, it's actually a scenario that happened. Previously, there happened a case at Makerere University where one of the males was, I can't use the word raped because even the legal system limits us from using it, but something in that category. Yep. He was raped by a group of girls from the hostel. So it happened to...
No. And again, I hope you see where the problem is. Do you guys see what the problem is? That it's your fellow men that are even laughing at you. You're very vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, he was sexually molested by a group of girls from a certain hall. So one of the discussions, where it's very okay. It's very okay for a man to go through that. A reason being that at the moment the man's stand up, that can easily represent consent given the nature of their biological makeup. And then one of the professors actually raised an argument and was like, but given the girl's nature, delicate nature of their reproductive makeup, that's why for them, even the legal system give them this protection to this. So my question still stands. How are we going to realize? Because I just feel like this man was infringed, but even the society, even the legal system can't protect him because there is this purported sort of difference that they say that biologically there's the difference. And the same thing also happens to other aspects of difference, looking at the psychological and other bits of it, yeah. So how best, or what has been put in place to address this?
That's a very good question. And it still goes back to, is that in relation to this? Okay.
I wish to answer him so that he can get satisfied. Okay, I think the issue he's speaking about concerns what we call mindset change. Yes. Okay, I'm justifying, boss. Mindset change. How? You see, our cultures, our code of conducts, and how we live always set how we should conduct ourselves in society. So sometimes we grow up becoming adults knowing that things are done this way. Even if it is good or bad, that's how we're supposed to do it. Even if it is discriminating a certain gender, we don't care. So I do believe that us, the land people who are getting this opportunity to attend such initiatives, to teach us, change the status quo in our minds, can make a positive change. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. And indeed, I do agree with you. It's really a question of mindset change. Because using that very same example you've given to us, there have been instances during rape of women where men have said, oh, but she was wet. No, I'm building my point. And fear is a very interesting thing. Fear can make you wet your pants, for instance. Fear can make your body seemingly do something totally different than you'd have wanted it to be. So, for instance, now it's no longer an excuse for you to say, oh, but she was wet, she wanted it. Never mind the fact that, someone is ready, is wet, So likewise, why is it that we men cannot reframe and say that just because I get an erection doesn't mean it's my body reacting to the circumstances. It's like how you touch my skin and then I get goosebumps and you think, muwadde. But it's just a natural reaction, the body's natural reaction to touch, to stimuli. You understand? So again, in rethinking very many of these things, we have got to, for instance, have some of those discussions to tell women that, look, even if you touch me like this and you see a bulge in my pants, it doesn't mean that I want you like that. It doesn't mean that So, and again, it comes from mindset change. It comes from, when you ask the question, you had women laughed at you and said, in which world? Which man can get hard and then he refuses to partake? But maybe I am not there. Mentally, I'm not there. Maybe, So again, the reframing, and that's the reason why those discussions are not being had, is because men are not at the table. We are not saying, look, that just because that we need to redefine rape, for instance. For instance, do you know that so many men who have been, move away from the rape where girls, want to use you. But there have been so many stories of men who have been used by other men. Yes. And these men even fear to come out and report because the stigma that surrounds, everyone will be looking at you as this person who, So, and again, as men, we need to, as we discuss, and why I was saying that this discussion around gender equity, we should not leave it to the feminists. As men, we need to also take part, because if the feminists are saying that the definition of rape is currently narrow, you support them because you know that as a man it's actually possible for you to be raped. There are examples of boys who have been dragged in hostel rooms and they've been raped by girls, by boys, So when we talk about gender justice, it's not something we need to leave for the women. Can we put our voice on table? So for you, my brother, the next time we're having discussions on the sexual offences bill, for instance, can your voice be loud and clear? Can it be heard? Can you say, you people are leaving out this aspect, but which is important to us as men? And that's something that is currently lacking right now. So I believe in mindset shift, in mindset change, so that the next time you ask that question, people in the room do not laugh at you and they say, they make it seem like it's impossible, when in actual sense it's actually very possible for a man to be sexually assaulted. So again, all these discussions need to be had. The reason why they have not is because men, for some reason, think that SRHR is a women's issue, and they've relegated, they've sort of thrown it to the women and they've left it at that, which is very, very erroneous. Does that answer your question or your query? Okay. So lastly, ladies and gentlemen, it's important for us as men to create positive role models and for us to embrace mentorship. We need to teach men that strength lies not in the size of your biceps or the size of your fist, but rather strength lies in the content of your character. It lies in qualities like respect. It lies in qualities like empathy and character traits like responsibility. Can we teach men that being a man is beyond what you look like on the outside or how strong you are perceived to be, but rather the depth of your character and how you're able to treat people around you and things like that. So on that rallying call, I would like to encourage the men in this room, in case you do not have a mentorship program and you're looking for a mentorship program, this is a Kalango. There is a mentorship program called the Ngumokio mentorship program that can walk that journey with you. And we do not walk that journey with you only along your professional path. I know you're all lawyers, right? Are we all lawyers? Yes. So we don't just walk with you. They are non-lawyers. Learning lawyers. No, for me, the reason why I say lawyers is because it's a matter of time. Yeah, it's a matter of time. So I don't live under the illusion that they are lawyers. And no, you guys are lawyers. So we don't just walk the journey with you along your professional path. We also walk with you along your personal journey, okay? So it's not enough for us to say, help you get an internship place somewhere. We also walk with you. We also encourage, we have talks where we invite different people, and those people can actually empower you and provide different nuggets of wisdom to you as a man. So as I conclude, I would like to put a rallying call to the men in this room. If you do not have a mentorship program, please sign up with us. But in case you do, please hold on to that mentorship. Work with other men. The women in this room you're seeing have better methods of organizing. And that's the reason why in the SRHR discussion, they've managed to actually push for so many policies to pass, because they are organized. Us as men, we organize around Nyash, around Arsenal, around beer, yet we can organize around concrete issues like this and create new families, create families that can actually hold us accountable and in the long run actually make us better men. So ladies and gentlemen, that's what I think that men and boys can do. First of all, it's important for us as men in our organizing to unlearn a lot of things. As a man, I've taken a journey of unlearning very many toxic traits of masculinity. It's been a very interesting journey for me. And I would really encourage everyone, in case you're this man who is not afraid of who you are as a man, and you're looking for a mentorship program, please sign up with me after here, and we'll be able to take the discussion forward. I thank you so much for listening to me, and indeed I've gotten so many insights, and I'm looking forward to any other additional insights that you guys may have. Thank you so much.
Okay. First, I think from the very topic that you had, is there a difference between men and boys? Then also the second one, how best then do you protect a man that sometimes women term vulnerable because they break off some of these masculinity form of traits? Because you see, in as much as like there are radicalists that push men to become like traditional, there are also people that empower women to be like traditional, right? So what happens? How do you help then a man who the woman can start terming as vulnerable? Like, how do I come back and I find you washing dishes, you're cooking, you're lessening yourself as a man, right? So how do you protect that individual? Because you find that sometimes when they come out, there's sometimes backlash that happens in society. Or say, for example, we're at home, my husband is cooking, probably I'm washing, and then the in-law marches in. They find it like as if you're lessening the man in the home. Like, how can he be doing that? So what do you do for such a man who is undergoing that form, like they're breaking off these toxic masculinity traits, but then there's that form of vulnerability that then happens?
I get you, and that's a very good question. Can I first respond to her, and then I'll come to you? I think, first of all, there is no, when it comes to humankind, there is no homogeneity. You cannot have one size fits all. You cannot have, it's either this route or the other route. I've learned in my short stay on this very tiny planet that the human experience is broader than that. If there is a man who wants a traditional woman, who will cook for you, who will wake up at 2 a.m. after you've come back from Leboti, and she makes you luombo, who will wait for you after you come back from Grunch by Cyrock, and will still prepare a very nice meal for you. Those women are there. And men who want those women should be encouraged to get those women. It is also true that there are men out there who genuinely would enjoy doing chores around the home. And that's why masculinity cannot be looked at as homogeneous. There are shades to masculinity. The same way you find men who will tell you, I cannot deal with a traditional woman. I want a woman who will be like a partner. And usually those ones call their women partners. Oh, she's my partner. Yeah? So for those people as well, there should be room for them to get what they want. The problem with this discourse is that we've boxed people into, you either choose a traditional man or you know, and yet ultimately people know what they want. The problem is being a man who wants a traditional man, then you get a traditional woman rather, then you get a woman who will never be traditional, and you hope that you're going to change her. That's where the problem usually comes in. And for me, where I think, so it's about what a person wants. Do you there should be room for everyone. Yes. Yes, my brother.
Okay, thank you. My question is one. We always face a scenario. It's not only me, you, him, and also that person. There is always this question asked to men by women. What do you bring on table? I want to ask the women in this room that that if you ask a man that question, take it the same way. What do women bring on table? Because you see, me have discovered through my research I made for 1 month that the most pain a man faces in life is when he cannot provide for his family. That's true. So if your man can struggle and things don't work on well, and you ask him, what do you bring on table? Yet you're not also collectively helping him to see that something comes on table, there is a problem. Thank you.
The problem with the discussion of what do you bring on table is that for many of these unions, how do you equate what you bring on table? How do you quantify it and say, well, last month, didn't I give you 6 sexes? Yeah? Last month, didn't I give you like 6 sexes? I mean rounds of sex as one thing I have brought on table. For me, I think that, and why I was talking about open communication, it is impossible for you to provide all the time. All the time. And increasingly in the economic, in the economic world we are going into, it's going to become increasingly difficult. The reason why now we have more two-income households is because it's becoming increasingly difficult for men to provide for their families alone. But I think for me, in having the discussion on what people bring on table and why it's important to have open and honest communication is if you tell each other that this is what, and maybe why people who begin relationships usually ask these questions, what will you be bringing on table? So that when this person tells you hands, I don't work, so meaning I will be at home. So now if you're at home, does that mean that you will be the one who is going to, clean? Who is going to do some of these chores? For me, I think it's a question, it's a case-to-case, case-by-case basis, and it depends ultimately on what you would have agreed upon as a couple. But again, I'm not the kind of person who likes to ask people what they have, what they've really brought on board. But I recognize it's a discussion that happens everywhere, even in my own household. Someone asked me what I bring, and I had to quantify and show the number of times I was being supportive. Yeah.
Thank you. I will concur with you on your position of that there must be a room for everyone. Now I bring this perspective in addressing our traditional men. Of recent, there were a few feminists, I think, in the parliament who sought that there should be equal opportunities, that if a traditional man can marry more than one wife, it should be the same the other way around. Now, I speak for a man who is in Kazo, who is a farmer and intends to marry a lawyer in this room. How do you then advise as a man such a person who will marry a lady here that has already pursued and gotten exposure that she can be entitled, when we speak in perspective of equal opportunities and equal rights, that lady can still pursue to get another person outside? Or polygamy in its sense, polygamy versus polygamy. Yeah, that's a political stuff also.
So let me see if I get you right. Polygamy versus, is that polyandry, I think? Polyandry, right? No, I think it's polyandry. Is there a man, is that man in Kazo, for instance, willing to deal with, because you see, let's not mix. There was an artist from Western Uganda who sang a song called Grade. And she was talking about how men need to understand their grade. And this grade is related to how much you have in your pocket, what you do, what you look like, and things like that. Basically, in this song, the woman was saying that this man is beneath her, and therefore she cannot marry him. She even goes ahead and says that you can never see a goat attempting to say, to express words of affirmation to a sheep because they are inherently incompatible. But, and also men, and of course it's premised on, the economics, the finances and things like that. For me, my response to that would be that I hope such a man would be willing to deal with the consequences that come from marrying up. You see, yes, it's marrying up. You see, as a man, you should not also lose touch with the reality around you. My brother could have a crush on the first daughter. But he also knows that once the first daughter comes with the money, the level of influence she has, she might be telling him to do things that the man does not want to do. The man from Kazo you're talking about is a traditional man, I am assuming, who might have difficulty trying to tell this graduate, you go and make me Luombo at 2 a.m. because the graduate feels like they are in another nkusingako level. You see, I'm on another level. And of course, we should blame capitalism. That's the reason why we are here. The fact that capitalism shows us that there are people who are better than us in terms of what they are able to bring at the end of the day, as opposed to, that's the world that we live in. But I also think that such men usually marry women, and then when the women refuse to, what is the word? If the women refuse to, I don't want to call it bow. What is that one? There was that word in the Bible. When the woman refuses to submit, now this man begins developing feelings. He begins wanting to fight the woman because I am a man and all that. But there are all these socio-economic factors that make it difficult for that woman to actually submit to you. That's why I was talking about the need for us to dismantle these systems. I don't know how we can do it, and every other day I keep asking myself the same question, but they are the real root cause of why we are in this mess in the first place. Because before you marry, you ask yourself, family in Jisobora. I've seen men who have broken their backs trying to raise dowry while in their attempts at marrying up. Then this girl begins telling you, for me, the other day there was a debate on Twitter around when you ask a girl out for coffee, does it mean that you guys are going to go and have coffee, or does it mean she can also go and order for some shawarma on the side? You understand? All these have cost implications. And ultimately, women were saying that, look, for me, if you ask me out on a date, it means you've called me to go and eat. So if I get there and I open the menu, you're not going to tell me your coffee jars. I will order for the coffee, and I will still order for this other food. You understand? So I think that there should be space for that man to marry that woman, but the man should also not live with any illusions about. Of course, the woman could also have a degree and submit to the man. It also does happen. But again, he shouldn't live with any illusion that the woman will submit to him. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. This one is not a question, but quoting what you said being a man is more than having biceps and triceps, but also a positive mentality. So that reminds me of a day. It was Thursday, last Thursday. I was coming from training at around 7:30 p.m. I met some two gentlemen trying to harass a young lady, by the way. So at first I said, binote binkwatako. So I continued my way. But then something came to me and said, man, chichiche wagendo kolo mukazi wabandi. So I had to go back and then try to help a little bit. So by that, what I'm saying is that you have to use the gift you have, whether it's a bicep, whether it's a positive mentality, whether it's a positive mentality, whether wisdom, whether anything you have to use it positively. Yes.
Well, I really agree. I agree 100%. If you have the biceps and you can use them, please, and well done on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, this is my last overall question. Okay, first she asked if there is any difference between a man and a boy. It wasn't addressed, and thought-provokingly, I really picked interest in it. But anyway, this is my question. From the overall discussion, we have realized various aspects, starting from culture, blah, 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 mindset change, and all that. I also shared, she also pasted a question which women normally ask, that why do you bring on table? And subjectively, from our societies, we tend to believe that sex is a sufficient gift for a woman to bring onto the table. And that's believe that woman will say, I give you like, okay, something like that. Yep, it's actually valid. So, and also you have an aspect of roles that we should share roles. So should we say that we should completely wither away this whole aspect of these are the roles of man, that a man should do this, or a woman should do this, that in a family, a man should do this, or in any society? Should we completely wither away, and then you look at that whole thing of equal share or something, or there are some things that actually we can't do away with, however much we like it, but nature or maybe some other aspects have already defined them? What's your stand on that?
Thank you. First of all, the question regarding boys and men, there are, of course, very glaring differences between the two. But the reason why in this discussion it's also important to talk about boys is because the boys of today are the men of tomorrow. And for instance, you've interacted with young kids. You've seen how impressionable some of these, actually all of them are. You've seen a boy, let's say you send a boy, let's say you have two kids and you send a boy to go to the kitchen to get you, say, a glass of water. And this boy feels like it's a role of the woman to do that. The boy will be the first to tell you, no, that's a woman's job, not mine. And that's why it's important to make sure that boys from the word go are actually taught that picking a glass of water does not take away the tools that define you as a man. That when you do a chore, when you clean up after yourself, you are not, your testicles are not going to shrink and enter your body and disappear just by doing that. And in a way to also touch on your second question, many of these gender roles were seemingly had rationale in them. For instance, to say that all hard work should be given to men, because traditionally speaking, you will find men are the ones usually who have the muscles. But that has also changed of late. And there are women you know who have muscles. You understand? Some of these gender roles, and that's why in our convenings we have got to ask ourselves, what was the rationale behind saying a man cannot do this? when you genuinely sit down and you unpack, you discover it's a whole hodgepodge of nonsense. You understand? And that's why I kept talking about questioning. We've got to question. We can't just say, people say they